Hello, welcome. This is Cheryl, and I am going to show you how I've completely transformed this old painting. It's probably at least 10 years old. And you'll see already, I've just dove right in and started extending the nose. I did some just deep study of this. I wanted to finish it or paint over it. And so I thought, why don't we try to take the skills that we learned in our art course and use them. Let's use them and see if we can maybe make this painting into something that's a little more professional and something that maybe would be sellable. It's all acrylic, and I actually had, when I finished it, I thought I liked it. I thought that it was okay, and I went ahead and signed it, and I even put like an acrylic, I think Liquitex acrylic varnish or sealer on it, which you can still paint over, just so you know. But you can see how the proportions were so off, because even just in this that I did, where I changed the eye and the nose, it made the nose a little longer. You'll see as I go along, rounding out the face, changing up some colors. The hair was completely wrong. These are supposed to be Highlander cows. And it just, I realize my taste has changed so much since I painted it. And my knowledge, of course, there's a little more knowledge. So, it's still, some of the proportions are still not quite right, but it in the end, it will look much better than it did than it did yesterday. Let's put it that way. So here I'm just going in, and I've decided to take the dark kind of undercoat color of the cow and block in a new shape of the face. And the reason I used the dark instead of the light was just because that's the kind of fur that this cow would have, is there'd be a dark underneath, and then there's kind of this reddish orange tinge to the hairs on top. And the hair is actually almost like dread, kind of, well, not really dreadlocks, but they're like little tufts. They're not stringy like horsehair. And I don't know what I was thinking when I originally started this painting it with this straight hair, and it's not that long. I mean, this looks more like a cross between a cow and a horse. I don't know what I was thinking. So here I am now trying to just get in some just multiple colors. And I'm using a combination of glazing and layering. And the layers, of course, I'm doing darks and then lights, and then going back in with midtones and darks, and then coming back with other lights and highlights. And you'll see me go back and forth. I do it especially with the hair, because the hair has such texture to it that the only way to get that texture is to keep going back and forth with layers of dark and light. So the kind of goldish yellow tinge that's in the painting, that was me trying to show sunlight. And we got a helicopter flying around our house. If you hear that in the background, I don't know what's going on, but my window is open, so I apologize if it's annoying. Anyway, but the yellow tinge is the kind of the sunlight, because it's like maybe an early evening, late afternoon sun. And by the way, the reference photo for this painting, my brother-in-law, Jesse Dinkle, he's a photographer, and he takes a lot of beautiful wildlife photography photos, and I always ask him if I can use it as a reference for painting, and he's always very generous, always says yes. So that he's the one who took the photo reference that I'm using. Um, and I started this painting, I want to say 2015. Yeah, 2015. And it's been sitting just collecting dust since then. So 10 years later, almost 10 years later, I'm pulling out a lot of my old paintings. I'm deciding, are you going to, are we going to just cover up the canvas and use them again? Because they're all acrylic, so I could do that. Uh, and I decided to try to save this one. I really like the baby. Um, so I'm going, you'll see me working on the baby in a little bit. And I'm trying to maintain as much of the coloring as I can in that one because I really liked the combination I did. There's just some details and proportion issues there. And also some of the texture in the fur I needed to change up. But a lot of the techniques that I learned in the Milan Institute program, the mastery program, really did come in handy. Just certain things about using different colors, not being afraid to use different colors, checking the proportions, which immediately, when I pulled this painting out, I was like, oh, good grief. And I think it's been sitting in my intro all this time, and I look at it now and I think, oh, I think I'm going to change my intro because I don't want the old version now to show in the intro because it was really bad. And I'm not saying this is going to end up perfect, but it's a far cry better from the original one that I had in there. But you see me just here, the fur comes down along its nose, but it's very like sheep when they haven't been sheared and it starts to kind of grow too long, and or like a shepherd sheepdog. It's kind of like that. And so I'm laying down the color and then I'm going back and forth, like I said. It's really hard. Hair is hard for me. I struggle with it. So this was also a good project for me to kind of practice my ways of achieving that textured fur that I was looking for, or hair. Um, I also realized how, as I was doing this painting, because I just jumped right in, and you notice in the very beginning, I jumped right in, and I just, without drawing anything, or I kind of eyeballed the proportions. I didn't really measure anything from the reference, because when I did measure, actually I did try to measure. When I did measure, it was so far off that I would have had to completely redo everything on this painting. So I thought, okay, well, let's not get that technical. Let's do the best we can to eyeball it to where it looks more realistic as far as the shape of the face. And in the end, I think I came close. It's still not perfect, but so you see here, I'm going in and I'm taking all that long hair out that I put in because that was just not right. I don't know what I was looking at, but it certainly wasn't the reference when I painted all that long hair. So the confidence level, though, to be able to just jump in with the paintbrush and the color and trust myself, I think, really made had an impact on me that I didn't expect. It made me really feel happy, and it made me really appreciate what I learned in the mastery course, because I didn't feel, well, of course, also that this painting I would have just been painting over it, so there wasn't anything to lose. It's not a commission. It's not something that had to be perfect. It was purely just me trying to salvage it, I guess. So there was no pressure, but also I find lately when I do start any painting that while I do try to kind of put little points in certain spots to help guide me in the proportion of it, then I just sketch it out. I just freehand it, eyeball it, and sketch it out. Now I did buy myself a projector. I haven't used it yet. So I might pull it out and use it at some point just to see what that's like to use a projector to get the proportions right. But I don't know, I really enjoy freehanding stuff. And now that I know how to measure properly, um, it it's kind of part of the fun for me. Okay, in this part of the painting here, you see where I was painting there down below the horn. That's supposed to be its ear. And I was struggling a little bit because the ear is pointed down, and that white hair right there is definitely not the ear, but it's hair that's coming out over the ear. So later I go back in and I try to kind of accent the edges of the ear a bit more, so that it looks a little more like an ear. I feel like that horn is sitting in a weird spot. My husband thinks it's fine, so I don't know. It's just me being picky, and I realize I go over these eyes over and over, but that's because I kept trying to get just the slightest hint of a pupil. Because in the reference photo, there's a slight hint of a pupil. There's no real highlight, but you can tell that there's just a slight color change. So I was trying to get that. And in the end, I just kind of let it be what it was and just put in some of the detail around the eyelids and so on. And then I put eyelashes in, which the way they end up at the end of this video is probably going to be changed because I feel like it's not coming across right. Now right there, it's starting to look more like a cow's eye, but it's still a little small. So I keep working it. And then when I add the eyelashes, it kind of makes it look even less like the eye that I want. So you won't see me do it, but I'll probably go and fix that before I call her done. But we have some of these cows near where I used to live in a little place called Oak Glen, which is a little apple farming town. And there's a person there with a farm that they have these Highlander cows out in the corral, and it's right at the street. So when you drive past, you can see them all out there, and people constantly stop by and take pictures of them and so on. They're just so cute. And I when I saw this photo that my brother-in-law took, I just couldn't resist, especially that calf with his little tongue sticking out. So again, here I am, more layers. And there was a slight orangish yellow, I want to say like a goldish, not quite rust, not quite yellow, in between kind of color that I was trying to achieve. And so I kept just adding different colors, going back and forth. I used burnt sienna, raw umber, I believe cadmium yellow, a little bit of white, and then I also had a little bit of a light blue color that I was using in different spots on the calf and on the horns and in the nose. And I think I threw some of that blue color in, mixed it in with some of the other darker colors to use in the shadows. So there's the only place I put any pure white. I don't even think I put pure white. I mixed it with the cadmium yellow or with the, there was another lighter brown that I used. I think it was called, I'm not sure what the name of it, but it was like a light brown. And I mixed that with some of the white to achieve like that color right there that I'm painting right now. And so the pure white, I did use a little bit of pure white on the baby in the end to highlight some things. But the places where it looks like I used white on the adult cow, it's actually a mixture of that light brown with a tiny bit of white. And then I think I threw a tiny bit of yellow in. But here you see me trying to flesh out that ear. I just was struggling with getting it right, but in the end, as I worked through the shadows and went into to bring up some of the darker colors under the hairs, I tried to kind of form a little more of an ear shape in there in the end. So I would say that the best way to get the shapes and the textures, you just keep doing layers, glazing and different layers of color. And the thing about it with acrylic is it dries so quick that you can wait a few minutes, let it dry, especially if it's glazing, because it dries super fast. So you can go in and within a few minutes, go ahead and add your next layer. Some people wait a long time. I'm pretty gutsy. I just go in there. And I don't generally have too much of a problem with muddy colors with acrylic. The only time I think I have a struggle is when I either add too much water or, yeah, basically too much water. Because if you do a glaze with too much water, when you go back, it just looks like you spilled some water on, dried on there. The color fades really quick. So you have to use enough paint with that water so that it doesn't, because it's going to fade out on you. It's gonna be a lot lighter. And also, uh, they're probably too translucent. They're not heavy bodied acrylic paint. They're pretty, yeah, they're pretty low quality, I would say. And that's something that I plan to do, is invest in some better acrylic paint. I've got pretty good quality oil paint, but the batch of acrylic paint I bought recently turned out to be not as high quality as I thought they were. And I'm kind of disappointed in them. But it could be too that I just didn't really realize when I bought them that they were a real thin bodied type of paint. So I will be careful next time to make sure that I'm getting something that's a little bit heavier. Because if it's heavier, you're going to get obviously better coverage. And then when you go to glaze, you also, it's just different. And I know obviously certain colors are going to have a more transparency or less than others. But when they're so transparent that you have to do several coats, and if you use any water at all, you're just getting, it's like a drop of milky water. It's not even, there's no even color to it. So that's kind of a bummer when you're trying to get layers going and you feel like you're not making any progress. So here's where I start trying to get some more texture in to this little guy. So I'm going in and I'm getting the dark shadowy parts that are back underneath the mom. I'm trying to get that to look like it's in shadow, but still make it obvious that it's very, very fair, like a blonde color fur. And by doing this, I'm kind of creating a second layer of value, dark and light value. And I'll probably do this another couple of times back and forth, the same way I did with the mom's mane up there with her hair. Because going back and forth like that, I'm able to then build up layers, and I'm trying to not go over the same spot and trying to lay down a color that helps to highlight the layer above or below, if that makes sense. And trying to get the texture of the fur. I'm a very what do I want to call it? I don't do careful strokes. I'm pretty loose and fast with my paint strokes. That's just how I do a lot of smushing and what do we call it? Gosh, I can't think of what we call it. Scribbling or scumbling. It's scumbling. Couldn't think of the word. I use that a lot in my paintings. I even scrub sometimes with an older brush to get what I want done. So when you're doing something like hair and you have my style of painting, it can get frustrating. So I had to slow down, I had to really think, and I had to be patient and do those layers and pay attention to what kinds of strokes I was putting down in order to build up that texture to look the way I wanted it to in the fur. And you'll see in the end that I hopefully I captured. I know I captured what I kind of had in my head. And once I've looked at this for a couple of days, who knows, I might go back and make some minor changes. I do that a lot. I do a video and then I go back, watch the video, go back, look at the painting. Oh, nope, it needs this tweak or that tweak. I'm one of those who struggle to know when something is done. I'm working on that though. So you see I'm trying to kind of fuzz out the edges too, the back edges in the background. So the back end of this baby, I'm trying to fuzz it out so that it fades back into the background a little bit. And brighten it up somewhat along the edges because the sunlight is supposed to be hitting the front edge of the little guy. The burnt sienna with a little bit of yellow and a tiny hint of white created kind of this peachy pink color that really helped to bring out the color I was after of this baby's fur. There was some places where there's a little bit of a bluish tinge, and I put that in, but for the most part it was kind of this peachy pink that kind of fades into like a really pale yellow and then highlighted with almost pure white. This was really fun, actually, to go in and finally fix this after looking at it and knowing it just wasn't what I wanted. But I was so busy trying to paint new paintings that I never went back to some of my old paintings. So it felt good to go back to this old painting and breathe some new life into it and hopefully make it into something that somebody might want. And again with more layers to provide that depth and texture and a little bit of shadow under the hairs. So let me know in the comments too if you have paintings that have sat for a while that maybe you were suddenly inspired to go back and either update or finish if it wasn't finished, or try some new technique. I saw something really cool the other day that I'd like to try. Um, and I think it's Joni Joni Young, I think her name is. I'll show it. I'll look it up and then I'll put her name in here in the description. Go check out her channel. She did this really cool thing the other day where she took an old painting and she covered it completely with like this dark blue oil coating, and then she just took a rag and she swirled it out. So it's almost like what we did, I know in our art class where we painted with bright colors, and then we painted over that, and then extracted or subtracted the parts that we wanted to show through. And it was really cool to watch her do this. She went in and just rubbed it out in a circle. And so she had this beautiful painting with this dark blue around it. You'll have to see it. I'll leave the link in the description. Go look at it. It's something that I think I might try if I have a couple other old acrylic paintings that I'm maybe not real happy with. Maybe I'll throw some other interesting things in and then cover it with some kind of dark oil color and see what I can draw out of it by doing the subtraction method. Now, one of the things that happened during filming this, my camera, it was full, so of course it shut off. And I thought, okay, well, I need to get up and I need to take a break and I need to free up some space on the camera so that I can show the second half of this. Well, I got so involved in what I was doing that I didn't get up right away, and I missed filming what I did for the background of this, because you see right now it's just this kind of brushed sagey kind of green in the background, which just wasn't working out for me. So I took some other colors and I brushed vertical lines in there to give it a little bit of a real faint background. So you can't really tell what it is, but it almost gives an impression of whether it's trees or grass or something in the background. So tell me what you think of that, because I really liked how it came out, even though it was so simple. Just thin washes of a kind of a light, really, really light yellow-brown color. So you'll see in the very end of this video what I did in the background. It might be hard for you to tell because the lighting isn't real good on the painting and on the video in the end. So tell me what you think. You'll see a side by side of before and after, and I think you'll see a huge difference. So I'm really grateful for what I learned through Milan, because even though I'm still nowhere near where I want to be, and uh, I haven't really found my voice to the point that I'm I'm just not, and I'm not sure who my market is. I'm still working on all of that. Um, but as far as the technique and different things that I learned, it was so worth it, and I'm so glad I did it. So here I'm adding, this is where I said it looks like white, but it's really a mixture of yellow, white, and a tiny bit of that light brown, just to kind of accent where the sun would be shining. I think I added a little more white there because I felt like it needed to be lifted somewhat, but it still wasn't pure white. It was mixed with that light brown. And there I'm putting in the eyelashes. Okay, so now you see that's where my camera had stopped. So now you see the background. The background has those kind of really faint vertical lines of like a light brown, orangish color. And I'm hoping that it kind of gives a feel of trees, really. That was my intention anyway, without actually painting trees. And there's kind of nearing the final layer of the hair for her. This was a long process of of video, a long video. So I decided to speed it up so that it wasn't going to be too boring and too long. See, here's where I was trying to accent that ear a little more because it's a very furry ear, and I didn't want it to seem like it had any kind of definitive line around it. So I was trying to just use different values to just kind of bring out the shape of the ear. And then I went in with that darker brown to kind of tidy up some of those long hairs that were sticking out. And then I also started to realize that there were places where there wasn't really enough texture. So I went in with some other lighter colors and just started kind of scrubbing in some texture because there would be light hitting that part past the baby's face. There would be light would be hitting, and then down between them, light would be shining in that area. So I was trying to just develop a little more texture there. I'd like to know what kinds of animals, if you paint animals, what are your favorite animals to paint? Or is there any kind of animal that you'd like to see me paint? I'm enjoying doing these paintings, and the more I do, of course, the more experience I get. And I learn something with every painting that I do, so I'm happy to paint anything anyone requests. So write in the comments if there's anything in particular you'd want me to try. I've had a couple of people make some suggestions on different series of animals that I might do, and I like those ideas, so I probably will. I know my last video I talked about how I was a little bit frustrated with having paintings just cluttering my house that I can't seem to sell. But that doesn't mean I'm not going to paint. I'm just not going to paint on gigantic canvases. And right now, I'm going to do a lot of acrylic work. Eventually, I will get back into doing some oil. But for now, just acrylic. Just working on my skill. Acrylic paint is a little bit easier to manage and for me, and it's a little bit cheaper, so I don't feel as much like I'm wasting paint. And with oil, I go too sparingly with it, and that's not a good thing. So I'm going to work a lot more on my skills, developing my skills using the oil paint. And then as I feel like I'm getting a little more confident in that, then I'll move back into doing some oil, because I do like the look of it. So we're getting down to the end here, and I hopefully gotten all those textures in place that I wanted. And in a few minutes, you'll see the before and after. But I'm going to stop talking now, and I want to say thank you for being here today and taking the time to watch this video. And I hope that I've either entertained you or given you something to think about, or given you some kind of tip or skill that's useful, or maybe just watching a fellow artist struggle with trying to reshape an old painting. I'm sure you all can relate to that. So thank you again for being part of my channel, and if you have not subscribed or been here before, please give me a like, and if you like what I'm doing, give me a subscription, and follow me for more videos like this and others. Thanks again. Have a beautiful rest of your day.